I watched my mother's face drain of color as the email loaded on her phone. Her hands trembled, nearly dropping the device onto the marble kitchen counter. My father froze mid-sip of his morning coffee, his eyes locked on the screen over her shoulder. Atlantic Records? Mom whispered, her voice cracking. A 3-album deal? $2 million signing bonus? That can't be right, Dad said, his cup clattering against the saucer. There must be some mistake. But there was no mistake. The email was real, forwarded from my new manager. The same manager they'd told me I'd never need because I was wasting my time with silly singing dreams. The same dreams they'd dismissed for my entire childhood. The same concert they'd skipped 3 months ago because my sister Vanessa's amateur tennis match was more important. They never knew that concert changed everything. They never knew a scout from Atlantic Records had been in the audience. They never knew because they weren't there. And I never told them. I stood in the doorway now, my suitcase packed behind me, watching them frantically scroll through the article that had just gone viral. 18-year-old vocal prodigy signs record deal after secret performance goes viral. 20 million views on the concert video. Headlines calling me the voice of a generation. Emma? Mom's eyes finally found mine, mascara already starting to run. Why didn't you tell us? We're your parents. I smiled, not with warmth, but with the cold satisfaction of someone who'd orchestrated this moment down to the second. Because here's what they didn't know. I'd lived this life before. In my first life, I died at 23, broken and alone in a psychiatric ward. The memory of that death was the first thing that slammed into me when I'd woken up on my 14th birthday, gasping for air in my childhood bedroom. For a moment, I thought I was still there, still in that sterile room with its harsh lights and the constant beeping of monitors, still trapped in the aftermath of the complete mental breakdown that my family's abuse had caused. But then I saw my hands, young hands, 14-year-old hands free of the scars I'd accumulated in my first life. I'd been reborn, given a second chance. And I remembered everything. I remembered how my parents had systematically destroyed my music career before it even began. How they'd refused to drive me to choir rehearsals, claiming it was too far while shuttling Vanessa to tennis practice an hour away 3 times a week. How they'd scheduled family vacations during my important performances, forcing me to choose between disappointing my choir director or being labeled selfish. How my father had accidentally deleted my recordings and my mother had forgotten to submit my applications to performing arts high schools. I remembered the jealousy. My sister's barely contained rage whenever someone complimented my voice. My mother's tight-lipped smile when a teacher suggested I had professional potential. My father's dismissive laugh when I talked about music school. They hadn't wanted me to succeed. They'd wanted me small, diminished, forever in the shadow of my sister's mediocre athletic achievements and my mother's social climbing ambitions. In my first life, I'd believed their narrative. I'd internalized their message that my dreams were foolish, that I wasn't talented enough, that I should focus on something practical. By the time I was 18, I'd given up music entirely and enrolled in business school to please them, a field I had no passion for and even less aptitude. The depression had started in my sophomore year of college. The complete breakdown came at 21 after I'd failed out of school and my parents had told me I was a disappointment, a waste of their money and time. They'd compared me endlessly to Vanessa, who was by then working a low-level marketing job but was at least self-sufficient. I'd attempted suicide at 22, survived, been institutionalized. My parents visited once in 6 months, said it was too hard for them to see me like that. Too hard for them. I died at 23 from pneumonia, my immune system weakened by medications and despair, alone in a psychiatric hospital because my family had abandoned me there. No one came to my funeral. I watched it somehow, a ghost in my own death dream. There were 11 people there, all staff from the hospital. My parents and sister didn't attend, but now I was 14 again, with 4 years to rewrite everything. And I had a plan. The first thing I did was start documenting everything. I bought a small recorder with money I'd saved from birthday gifts, money my mother tried to confiscate for family expenses, which I now knew meant Vanessa's tennis equipment. I hid the recorder in my room and caught every dismissive comment, every cruel comparison, every forgotten promise. Emma, I can't drive you to rehearsal today. Vanessa needs new tennis shoes. We're going to miss your concert, sweetie. Your sister's tournament is the same day, and you understand that's more important, right? Stop being so dramatic. Singing isn't a real career. Vanessa is focused on practical goals. I recorded it all. Months and months of evidence of their systematic neglect and emotional abuse. The second thing I did was get better at music. So much better. In my first life, I'd been talented but untrained. Raw potential that never got refined because I couldn't afford lessons and my parents wouldn't help. This time, I knew where the free resources were. I spent hours in the library using their computers to study music theory through online courses. I joined every free community choir I could find, taking 3 buses each way because my parents refused to drive me. I practiced in the school bathroom during lunch, in the park after school, anywhere I could be alone with my voice. I learned from YouTube tutorials taught by professionals. I studied breathing techniques, vocal exercises, performance skills. I recorded myself constantly, critiquing every note, every phrase, every emotional beat. By the time I was 16, I was better than I'd ever been in my first life, and I knew it. The third thing I did was start planning for independence. I got a part-time job at a local cafe, lying about my parents' permission, which I knew they'd never give. I opened a secret bank account using my school ID. Every penny I earned went into that account. I was saving for my escape, for the moment when I could finally break free. But I was also waiting for the right moment to let them destroy themselves. Because I remembered the date that would change everything if I played it right. March 15th, my senior year, the date of the regional high school choir championship concert. In my first life, I hadn't even qualified for the solo audition. My choir director had barely known my name because I'd missed so many rehearsals due to my parents' scheduling conflicts. I'd been just another face in the chorus, invisible and unremarkable. This time, everything was different. By my senior year, I was the star of every choir I'd joined. My voice had matured into something extraordinary. A crystal clear soprano with a 4-octave range and the kind of emotional resonance that made people cry. My choir director, Mrs. Patterson, had been begging me to audition for performing arts schools, to enter competitions, to let her connect me with people in the industry. I'd politely declined everything. My parents want me to focus on academics, I'd tell her with a sad smile. Maybe after college. But for the regional championship, I auditioned for the solo, and I won it. The solo was a haunting arrangement of wicked game that Mrs. Patterson had specifically chosen to showcase my range and emotional depth. When I'd performed it for the selection committee, 2 of the judges had openly wept. "Emma," Ms. Patterson had said afterward, gripping my hands, "you need to be on a stage, a real stage. This is just the beginning for you." If only she knew how right she was. I told my parents about the concert 3 months in advance, marked it on the family calendar, sent them reminders, made sure they knew this was the most important performance of my high school career. "Of course we'll be there, sweetie," Mom had said absently, not looking up from her phone where she was texting about Vanessa's tennis. "We wouldn't miss it," Dad had agreed. They were lying, and I knew it, because I remembered. March 15th was also the date of Vanessa's semi-important tennis match against a school 3 hours away. Not a championship. Not even a particularly competitive match. Just a regular season game that Vanessa would lose anyway. In my first life, my parents had chosen that match over my concert. They'd told me the morning of, casually, as if it didn't matter. As if breaking. My heart was just another Tuesday. This time, I was counting on them to make the same choice. 2 weeks before the concert, I started phase 2 of my plan. I created a TikTok account under a pseudonym and started posting short clips of me singing. Nothing that showed my face, just my voice over artistic videos I'd created. The algorithm loved it. Within a week, I had 50,000 followers. Within 2 weeks, 200,000. I also reached out to Marcus Chen, a music producer I'd learned about through online forums. In my first life, I'd never had the courage to contact anyone in the industry. This time, I sent him a carefully crafted email with my best recordings attached. He responded within 3 hours. "Your voice is incredible. I'd love to talk about representation. When can you meet?" We met at a cafe downtown, one of the few times I'd lied about staying late at school. Marcus was in his 30s, intense and professional with a track record of discovering major talent. How old are you? He'd asked. 17, 18 in 3 months. And your parents, are they supportive? I'd smiled that cold smile I'd perfected. They don't know I'm here. And I'd like to keep it that way until I turn 18. He'd studied me for a long moment. That's unusual. My family situation is complicated, but I'm serious about this. I've been training for years. I just need someone to give me a shot. I sang for him right there in the cafe, a quiet acoustic version of an original song I'd written. By the time I finished, the entire cafe had gone silent, every customer staring. Marcus had tears in his eyes. Okay, here's what we're going to do. The plan was simple and devastating. Marcus would attend the regional championship concert on March 15th. He'd bring contacts from Atlantic Records, people he'd worked with before who were always looking for fresh talent. I'd perform my solo, the performance of my lifetime, and let them discover me naturally. But there was another element to the plan, one that made it perfect. The concert was being live-streamed. The school had recently invested in professional streaming equipment and was promoting the event heavily on social media. I'd made sure to personally thank the AV Club for their hard work, ensuring they'd put extra effort into the production quality. That live stream was going to be my nuclear option because I wasn't just going to sing well. I was going to sing so well that the video would go viral. I was going to pour every ounce of pain, every moment of neglect, every year of suppressed dreams into that performance. I was going to make people feel what I'd felt, and my parents were going to miss it. The morning of March 15th arrived with perfect spring weather. I came downstairs dressed in the simple black dress required for the concert. My hair styled, my makeup minimal but polished. I looked older, more mature, more like the professional artist I was about to become. Mom was making breakfast, Dad reading the newspaper. Vanessa was already in her tennis uniform, bouncing with nervous energy. Big day, and then isan, I said casually, pouring myself orange juice. Yes, Vanessa exclaimed. My match is going to be amazing. Coach says scouts might be there. I nearly laughed. In my first life, I'd believed that lie. This time, I knew the truth. Vanessa was mediocre at tennis, barely scraping by on the JV team. There would be no scouts, there never were. And Emma's concert is tonight, Dad said, not looking up from his paper. Oh, Vanessa's face fell slightly. Right. About that, Mom said, and I felt the familiar script clicking into place. Honey, we have a problem. What problem? I asked, my voice perfectly innocent. Vanessa's match got moved to the same time as your concert. We didn't find out until last night. A lie. The match schedule hadn't changed, but they'd only checked it last night and realized the conflict, a conflict I'd known about for 3 months. The thing is, Mom continued, setting down her spatula, this match is really important for Vanessa's athletic scholarship applications. And you understand that her future is more important than mine? I finished sweetly. Mom flushed. That's not what I was going to say. We'll be at your next concert, Dad said, still not looking at me. This is just unfortunate timing. There won't be a next concert, I said truthfully. This is the last one of my high school career. Then it's not that important, Vanessa said with a shrug. It's just high school. My tennis could get me into college. I looked at each of them, memorizing this moment. The casual cruelty, the thoughtless prioritization, the complete lack of awareness that they were destroying their daughter's dreams. Again. You're right, I said, smiling. It's just high school. You should definitely go to Vanessa's match. Mom looked relieved. You're being so mature about this, Emma. We really appreciate your understanding. Of course, I said. Family first, right? I went to school that day feeling lighter than I had in 4 years, because they'd done exactly what I'd predicted. They'd chosen Vanessa. They'd dismissed me. They'd walked right into my trap. And tonight, they were going to regret it for the rest of their lives. The auditorium was packed by 7 p.m. Students, parents, teachers, community members, nearly 800 people in the audience. The live stream had over 2,000 viewers before the concert even started, thanks to the school's social media promotion and my secret TikTok following who I'd subtly hinted might want to tune in. Marcus sat in the third row with two executives from Atlantic Records, Sarah Kim, head of A&R, and James Rodriguez, a senior producer. They looked bored, the way industry professionals always do when they're forced to attend amateur performances. That was about to change. I stood backstage, breathing deeply, centering myself. Mrs. Patterson rushed over, her face concerned. "Emma, honey, I haven't seen your parents yet, did they?" "They couldn't make it," I said calmly. "Family emergency." The lie hurt her more than it hurt me. She squeezed my hand. "I'm so sorry, but you're going to be incredible, I know it." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson, for everything." She didn't understand the weight behind those words. Didn't know I was thanking her for 4 years of kindness that had kept me sane, for believing in me when no one else did, for being the teacher I'd needed in both lifetimes. The concert began with group numbers, solid performances by talented students who'd worked hard. The audience was appreciative, applauding warmly. The live stream viewership climbed to 3,000, then 4,000. Then it was time for my solo. Mrs. Patterson introduced me with genuine pride in her voice. "Our final performance tonight is by our senior soloist, Emma Richardson. Emma has been a member of our choir for 4 years and has been the heart and soul of our ensemble. Please welcome her performing Wicked Game." I walked onto the stage in a single spotlight, no accompaniment yet, just me and the microphone and 800 pairs of eyes. And I began to sing. The first note came from somewhere deep inside, a place where I'd stored all the pain of 2 lifetimes. It was haunting and pure, filling the auditorium with a sound that seemed to stop time itself. The world was on fire and no one could save me but you. I wasn't just singing the lyrics, I was telling my story. Every word dripped with the agony of being unloved by the people who were supposed to love me most. Every note carried the weight of abandonment, of dismissal, of dreams deferred and destroyed. The audience was completely silent, transfixed. In the third row, Sarah Kim's bored expression had transformed into something like awe. Marcus was leaning forward, his eyes locked on me. The livestream viewership hit 10,000, then 20,000. Comments began flooding in. "Who is this? This voice is insane. I'm literally crying at this, huh? She sounds like an angel." I hit the bridge, and this is where I let everything go. My voice soared, climbing impossibly high before dropping to a whisper so intimate it felt like I was singing directly into each person's ear. I controlled every breath, every vibrato, every emotional nuance with the precision I'd spent 4 years developing. This was the performance I'd been born to give. The performance that justified my rebirth, the performance that would change everything. When I finished, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the auditorium erupted. People weren't just applauding, they were on their feet, some crying openly, some screaming. Mrs. Patterson was sobbing in the wings. The other choir members were staring at me like they'd never seen me before, and in a way, they hadn't. I'd hidden my true abilities. All through high school, singing just well enough to earn solos, but never revealing the full extent of my talent. Tonight, I'd revealed everything. Sarah Kim was already on her phone. Marcus was pushing through the crowd toward the stage. James Rodriguez was recording something, probably notes about what he'd just witnessed. The live stream had exploded to over 100,000 viewers, and the number was climbing exponentially as people shared the video. The comment section was moving so fast it was unreadable. I took my bow, drinking in the moment, knowing that my life had just changed forever. And my parents had missed all of it. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I went to a meeting that Marcus had arranged at a downtown hotel, neutral ground with Sarah and James from Atlantic Records. Mrs. Patterson came with me as my adult supervision, her eyes still red from crying. "Emma," Sarah said once we were all seated in a conference room, "I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've heard thousands of voices. What you did tonight was transcendent. Where have you been training?" "Nowhere," I said honestly. "I've taught myself through online resources and community choirs. My parents don't support my music." "Don't support?" James looked shocked. "With a voice like that? Are they insane?" I smiled slightly. They prefer to focus on my sister's tennis career. Well, Sarah said, leaning forward, here's what I'm prepared to offer. We want to sign you to a development deal immediately. Even though you're still 17, we can structure it so it activates when you turn 18 in 3 months. But more than that, I want to fast track you to a full album deal. We'll provide vocal coaching, production support, marketing, everything. You're going to be a star, Emma, not in 5 years, starting now. Mrs. Patterson gasped softly beside me. Marcus was grinning. The video is already going viral, James added, showing me his phone. 3 million views in 2 hours. You're trending on Twitter. People are calling you the discovery of the year. There's more, Sarah said. I want to be transparent with you. Based on what I've seen tonight and the viral response, I'm prepared to offer you a 3-album deal with a $2 million signing bonus. That's extremely rare for a new artist, but I believe you're worth the investment. The room went silent. $2 million, 3 albums, everything I dreamed of in my first life handed to me on a silver platter. What about school? Ms. Patterson asked weakly. She's supposed to graduate in 3 months. We can work around that, Sarah said. Emma, do you have college plans? My parents expect me to go to state school for business, I said. But I never wanted that. Then don't go, Sarah said simply. Take this deal, move to LA, make music, live your dream. You're talented enough that you don't need a backup plan. I pretended to think about it, but I already knew my answer. I'd known it for 4 years. I need one thing first, I said. I need to wait until after my birthday to sign anything official, and I need to tell my parents on my own terms. Marcus looked at me knowingly. He'd understood from our first meeting that I had scores to settle. Of course, Sarah said. We'll draw up the contracts, but nothing happens until you're 18 and ready. Deal? Deal. We shook hands, and I felt the weight of my first life lifting away. I was free. I was going to make it. I was going to be everything they'd told me I couldn't be. And they were going to watch it happen from the outside. The video hit 10 million views by the next morning, 20 million by the evening. Major news outlets were picking up the story. Unknown teen singer goes viral after high school concert. The voice that's breaking the internet. Record labels in bidding war over high school senior. Except there was no bidding war. I'd already chosen Atlantic, already agreed to terms. But the media speculation was driving the views even higher, which was exactly what I wanted. I stayed at Mrs. Patterson's house that first night, not ready to face my family. My phone was exploding with texts and calls from classmates, teachers, distant relatives who'd never cared about me before, and from my parents. Mom. Emma, where are you? We need to talk about this video. Dad. Your mother is very upset. Come home immediately. Vanessa. Everyone at school is talking about you. Did you know this was going to happen? I ignored them all. Instead, I posted a message on my newly verified social media accounts. Thank you to everyone who's watched and shared my performance. Music has always been my dream, and I'm grateful beyond words for this opportunity. Special thanks to Mrs. Patterson and my school choir for supporting me. To everyone who believes in following your passion, even when others don't, keep going. Your voice matters. The post went viral too. Celebrities were retweeting it, musicians were offering support and advice. I gained 1 million followers overnight, and not once did I mention my parents or family. That silence spoke volumes to everyone who knew how to read between the lines. I went home 2 days later, after the school basically forced me to because my parents were worried. I'd already consulted with a lawyer Marcus recommended, a specialist in family law who'd helped me understand my rights as an almost 18-year-old. I walked in to find my entire family sitting in the living room, clearly waiting for me. Mom's eyes were red from crying. Dad looked angry and confused. Vanessa was sulking, her phone face down on the couch, probably because for the first time in her life, I was getting more attention than her. Emma, Mom said, standing up, where have you been? We've been worried sick. I've been handling my career, I said calmly, setting my bag down. You know, the career you've spent my entire life telling me wasn't real. Don't take that tone with us, Dad said sharply. We're your parents. Are you? I asked. Because parents usually attend their child's important events. Parents usually support their child's dreams. Parents usually don't choose one child over the other, again and again and again. That's not fair, Vanessa protested. Your tennis is mediocre at best, I said, and she flinched like I'd slapped her. There were no scouts at your match. There never are. You're a decent player on a bad team, and you're never going to play in college, let alone professionally. We all know it, but everyone pretends otherwise to protect your feelings. Emma, Mom gasped. But my music? I continued, my voice rising. My actual documented talent that has now been validated by millions of people and a major record label? That was always just a hobby. That was always less important than Vanessa's fantasy tennis career. We didn't know you were that good, Dad said weakly. You would have known if you'd ever bothered to listen, I shouted, and the raw pain in my voice made them all flinch. I've been singing for years. I've invited you to dozens of concerts. I've begged you to come to rehearsals, to hear me perform, to just pay attention. And you've blown me off every single time because Vanessa's mediocrity was more important than my excellence. That's not true, Mom said, but her voice cracked. We've always supported you. I pulled out my phone and opened a folder I'd been curating for 3 years. Really? Let's review, shall we? I played the first recording. Mom's voice, crystal clear. Emma, I can't drive you to your choir concert tonight. Vanessa needs new tennis shoes, and the store closes at 6. I played another. Dad's voice. Stop being so dramatic about this music thing. You need to focus on practical skills, not pipe dreams. Another, Mom again. We're not paying for vocal lessons. That money is better spent on Vanessa's tennis camp. I played a dozen recordings, each one more damning than the last. Years of dismissals, rejections, and casual cruelty, all documented in their own voices. Mom was crying openly now. Dad looked pale. Vanessa was staring at the floor. You broke me, I said quietly. Over and over again, you broke me. You made me believe I wasn't good enough, that my dreams didn't matter, that I was less important than my sister. You destroyed my confidence and dismissed my talent because it didn't fit your narrative of what our family should be. Emma, Dad started. I'm not finished, I interrupted. Here's what's going to happen now. In 3 months, I turn 18. The day I turn 18, I'm signing a 3-album deal with Atlantic Records for a $2 million signing bonus. I'm moving to Los Angeles, and you will never take credit for my success or pretend you supported me. The silence was deafening. $2 million? Vanessa whispered. You can't move to Los Angeles, Mom said desperately. You're just a child. You need your family. I needed my family my entire childhood, I said. Where were you then? I needed you at my concerts, at my rehearsals, during the thousands of moments when I was begging for your attention and support. You weren't there. You were at Vanessa's tennis matches, at Vanessa's practice, focusing all your energy on Vanessa's mediocrity while ignoring my greatness. We didn't know, Dad said again. You didn't want to know, I corrected. That's worse. You could have come to any concert, any performance. You could have listened when teachers told you I was talented. You could have paid attention when I made honor choir, regional choir, every competitive ensemble I auditioned for. But you didn't, because acknowledging my talent meant acknowledging that you'd been wrong to dismiss me. It meant admitting that maybe Vanessa wasn't the special one after all. Vanessa stood up abruptly, tears streaming down her face. You're a bitch, she spat. You think you're so much better than everyone now because some stupid video went viral. I don't think I'm better, I said. I know I'm talented. There's a difference. And I'm done pretending otherwise to make you feel better about being average. She ran upstairs, slamming her door. The house shook. Mom looked at me with desperate eyes. Emma, please, we're sorry. We made mistakes. But we're your family. We love you. You love the idea of me, I said. The daughter who stays small and grateful and doesn't outshine anyone. But the real me, the talented, ambitious, successful me, you can't stand her. You proved that by missing the most important night of my life. We can make this right, Dad said. Tell us how to fix this. I laughed, and it was a bitter sound. You can't. You had 18 years to be good parents to me. You chose not to be. Now you have to live with the consequences. Which are? Mom asked fearfully. You'll read about my success in magazines, I said. You'll see me on TV, in interviews, accepting awards. You'll watch me live the life you told me was impossible. And you'll know every single day that you could have been part of it. You could have been the supportive parents who helped me achieve my dreams. Instead, you'll be the parents I never mentioned, the family I left behind, the people who didn't believe in me. You can't do this, Dad said, his voice hardening. You're still a minor. You live under our roof. We have rights. For 3 more months, I agreed, sir. And I've already consulted with a lawyer. I know exactly what you can and can't do. You can make these 3 months difficult, but you can't stop what's coming. The contracts are drawn up. The deal is done. Atlantic Records has already issued a press release. I pulled out my phone and showed them the article that had posted an hour ago. Atlantic Records signs viral singing sensation Emma Richardson to multi-million-dollar deal. The whole world knows now, I said. You can kick me out. You can try to sabotage me, but all you'll do is make yourselves look worse. The media already loves the narrative of the unsupported artist who made it despite her family. Don't give them more ammunition. Mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I'll pay rent for the next 3 months, I said. Marcus has already advanced me money against the signing bonus. You'll get $5,000 a month. In exchange, you'll leave me alone. You won't pretend to be supportive, you won't talk to the media about me, and you won't interfere with my career. On my 18th birthday, I leave, and we can all move on with our lives. Emma, Mom whispered, please don't do this. You're destroying our family. No, I said softly. You destroyed our family years ago. I'm just the only one honest enough to admit it. I went upstairs to my room, closed the door, and finally let myself feel the weight of what I'd just done. Victory didn't feel quite like I'd imagined. There was satisfaction, yes. Deep, cathartic satisfaction in finally making them see what they'd thrown away. But there was also grief. Grief for the family I'd never had, for the parents who'd never loved me the way I deserved, for the sister who'd been taught to see me as competition instead of an ally. But grief was just another emotion to channel into my art, and I had so much art left to create. The next 3 months were a masterclass in silent warfare. My parents tried at first to rebuild bridges. Mom would knock on my door with offers of tea and talks. Dad would try to engage me in conversations about my plans. Vanessa avoided me entirely, which was honestly a relief. I was polite, but distant. I paid my rent on the first of each month. I came and went as I pleased, often staying with Mrs. Patterson or at hotels that Atlantic Records paid for when I needed to be in LA for meetings. The media attention never died down. If anything, it intensified. I was invited onto morning shows, podcasts, radio programs. I declined most of them on Marcus's advice. We were building anticipation, creating mystique. I gave exactly 3 interviews, each one carefully crafted to tell my story without explicitly dragging my family. But people could read between the lines. My family and I have different views on what constitutes success, I'd said diplomatically on Good Morning America. They've always been very focused on traditional paths, and my music career didn't fit that vision. Were they supportive? The interviewer had asked. They weren't at my last high school concert, I'd said with a sad smile. The one that changed my life. That tells you everything you need to know. The internet had torn my parents apart. Reddit threads dissecting their neglect, Twitter threads calling them out. Someone had found my recordings and leaked them, and suddenly my parents' exact words were being quoted in articles about unsupportive parents and family scapegoating. Vanessa got the worst of it. She'd made the mistake of posting on social media about how family loyalty matters more than fame, and people had destroyed her in the comments. Her tennis teammates had apparently started treating her differently. She'd quit the team 2 months into my final semester. I should have felt bad about that. But I didn't. She'd been complicit in my mistreatment for years, had actively enjoyed being the favorite child, had never once stood up for me or questioned why our parents treated me so differently. Actions had consequences. She was learning that now. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I graduated as valedictorian, something my parents didn't know I'd achieved until the ceremony because I'd specifically requested they not attend. Mrs. Patterson and Marcus were in the audience instead, cheering when I gave my speech about pursuing dreams despite obstacles. The speech went viral too. Of course it did. Everything I touched turned to gold now. I'd started writing my own songs, pouring 4 years of pain and triumph into lyrics that felt like therapy. Atlantic loved them. Sarah said I had a gift not just for singing, but for storytelling, for capturing universal emotions in specific, personal ways. Your pain is going to make you very successful, she'd said. People connect with authentic suffering. They respond to triumph over adversity. You have both in spades. I'd already recorded 6 tracks. My first single was scheduled to drop 2 weeks after my 18th birthday. The marketing campaign was massive. Atlantic was throwing their full weight behind me. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd planned. My 18th birthday arrived on June 12th, a warm Tuesday that felt charged with potential. I woke up at Mrs. Patterson's house, where I'd been staying for the past week to avoid any last-minute dramatics from my parents. Marcus picked me up at 9 a.m. for the drive to Atlantic Records office in Century City. The contract signing was a small ceremony, just me, Marcus, Sarah, James, and a few executives. Photographers captured me signing my name, the smile on my face one of pure joy and relief. "How does it feel?" Sarah asked. "Like freedom," I said honestly. The press release went out at noon. Emma Richardson officially signs with Atlantic Records. First single, Never Enough, drops June 26th. My phone exploded with congratulations from classmates, teachers, industry people I'd met over the past months. But nothing from my family. I hadn't expected anything. They knew today was the day, but we'd barely spoken in weeks. I'd moved most of my belongings to storage, keeping only essentials at Mrs. Patterson's house until I moved to LA next month. I was having dinner with Marcus and Mrs. Patterson to celebrate when my phone rang. "Mom." I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello? Emma." Mom's voice was strained, tearful. "Happy birthday." "Thank you." "We were hoping, your father and I were hoping you might come home." "For cake. To celebrate." "Celebrate what?" I asked. "My birthday, or the multi-million-dollar deal you tried to prevent me from pursuing for my entire childhood?" Silence. "Emma, please, we know we've made mistakes. Terrible mistakes, but we're trying to change." "Vanessa wants to apologize. We all want to—" "No," I said simply. "No, I don't want your apologies, or your cake, or your attempt to rewrite history now that I'm successful. You had 18 years to be good parents. You chose not to be. That's done now." "You're our daughter," Mom said desperately. "We love you." "You love my money," I corrected. "You love my success now that it's undeniable. You love the idea of being able to tell people you supported me, but you didn't love me when I needed you to, and I don't need you anymore." "Emma, goodbye, Mom. Don't call again." I hung up and blocked the number. Then I blocked Dad and Vanessa too. Mrs. Patterson was watching me with concern. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," I said, and I meant it. For the first time in my entire life, both lives, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Never Enough dropped 2 weeks later and immediately shot to number 3 on the iTunes charts. The song was a haunting ballad about never being good enough for the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. Every word was drawn from my experience, every melody crafted to evoke the specific pain of familial rejection. Critics loved it. "A stunning debut from one of the most exciting new voices in music," Rolling Stone wrote. "Emma Richardson doesn't just sing, she excavates emotion." The music video featured me in an empty house, singing to absent figures, reaching out to people who were never there. It was artistic enough to be ambiguous, but personal enough that anyone who knew my story understood exactly what it meant. 20 million views in the first week. My parents tried to do press. Dad gave an interview to a local paper claiming they'd always known I was talented and were so proud. The internet destroyed him in the comments, pulling up the leaked recordings of his dismissiveness. Mom tried to post supportive messages on social media. Her comments were ratioed so hard she deleted her accounts. Vanessa apparently tried to leverage my fame to launch a social media influencer career. It went nowhere. People saw through her immediately. I watched it all from my new apartment in LA, a beautiful two-bedroom in West Hollywood that I'd furnished myself with my signing bonus. I lived alone, gloriously alone, free from judgment and dismissal and constant comparison. I worked with incredible producers and musicians. I performed at exclusive showcases for industry insiders. I was interviewed by major publications and treated with respect and admiration. My second single, Ghost, Family, was even more explicitly about my experience. The chorus went, "You can't mourn what you never had, can't miss the love that wasn't there. I'm haunted by the living, by the ghosts who never cared." It debuted at #1. My parents sent a cease and desist through a lawyer claiming I was defaming them. My lawyer responded with copies of the recordings, documentation of their neglect, and a reminder that truth is an absolute defense against defamation. They backed down immediately. My first album, Reborn, came out in March, exactly 1 year after the concert that changed everything. It was a concept album about cycles of abuse, self-discovery, and liberation. Critics called it mature beyond her years and one of the most impressive debuts in recent memory. It went platinum in 6 weeks. I did a press tour performing on late-night shows and morning programs. Every interview asked about my family, and I had my answer perfected. We're estranged. Sometimes the people who are supposed to support you most are unable to. I'm grateful for the chosen family I've found in the music industry and for the fans who've supported me. Dignified, honest, devastating. I won Best New Artist at the MTV Video Music Awards. In my acceptance speech, I thanked Ms. Patterson, Marcus, everyone at Atlantic Records, and everyone who's ever been told their dreams don't matter. Keep going. You matter. The camera panned to celebrities wiping tears from their eyes. I didn't mention my family. That silence was louder than any call-out would have been. 2 years after my rebirth moment, I was performing at Madison Square Garden. Sold out, 18,000 people singing my songs back to me. I was 20 years old and had achieved everything I'd dreamed of in my first life. 2 platinum albums, multiple awards, critical acclaim, financial security, artistic freedom. But more than that, I had peace. I'd broken the cycle. I'd refused to let their neglect define me. I'd turned my pain into art and my art into triumph. Sometimes I wondered if they regretted it, really regretted it, not just regretted missing out on my success. Did my mother lie awake at night thinking about all the concerts she'd skipped? Did my father understand that his dismissiveness had destroyed any chance of a relationship with his daughter? Did Vanessa realize that her mediocre tennis career had cost her a relationship with a sister who could have helped her, supported her, loved her if given the chance? I'd never know. I'd blocked them on everything, instructed my management team to intercept any contact attempts. They were strangers to me now, people who'd had their chance and blown it. I was standing backstage at Madison Square Garden, about to go on for my encore, when Marcus found me. "You have a visitor," he said carefully. "Mrs. Patterson brought her. She thought you might want to know." "Know what?" "Your grandmother is here. Your father's mother. Apparently she's been trying to reach you for months, but your parents never passed along the messages." My chest tightened. My grandmother, I'd barely known her in my first life. My parents had been estranged from her for reasons they'd never explained, and I'd seen her maybe 3 times total before I died. "She says she saw your performance at the concert last year," Marcus continued. "The one that went viral. She's been following your career. She wants to talk to you." I should have said no. Should have maintained my boundaries, protected my peace. But something in me needed to know why she was here. "Okay," I said. After the encore. 20 minutes. The encore was electric. I performed Never Enough and Ghost Family back to back, and the crowd sang every word. As I took my final bow, I felt the weight of my journey. The distance I'd traveled from that girl who died alone in a psychiatric hospital. I'd saved myself. And now I was going to find out what my grandmother wanted. She was waiting in my dressing room, a small, elegant woman in her 70s with silver hair and eyes that looked exactly like mine. "Emma," she said, standing up, "you look so much like I did at your age, it's startling." "Why are you here?" I asked, not unkindly, but not warmly either. "Because I owed you an apology, 20 years overdue," she said. "And because I wanted you to know that someone in your family sees you and is proud of you." "I don't need my family's approval anymore," I said. "I know, that's why I'm here. Not because you need me, but because I need you to know the truth." She sat back down, gesturing for me to join her. I did, cautiously. "Your father is my son, and I love him," she said. "But he's also weak, easily manipulated, and married to a woman who is deeply insecure and narcissistic. Your mother couldn't stand that you were talented because it threatened her vision of Vanessa as the special child. Your father went along with it because he always takes the path of least resistance." "I know all this," I said. "What you don't know is that I fought with them about it. Constantly. I told them they were destroying you. I tried to be in your life, to support your music, to give you what they wouldn't. Your mother forbade it, said I was undermining their parenting. Your father backed her up." My throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know you weren't crazy. You weren't wrong. Everything you felt, all the neglect and dismissal, it was real, it was intentional, and it was cruel. And I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. I let them keep me away from you because I thought maintaining some access was better than being cut off entirely. I was wrong." A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. "I've followed your career obsessively," she continued. "Every article, every interview, every performance. I've watched you become the woman you were always meant to be, despite everything they did to stop you. You're extraordinary, Emma. Not just talented, strong, resilient, true to yourself in a way most people never achieve." "Thank you," I whispered. "I don't expect a relationship," she said. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that someone in your family always saw you, always believed in you, and always loved you, even if I didn't show it well enough." We sat in silence for a moment, two women connected by blood and pain and missed opportunities. "My apartment in New York has a guest room," I said finally. "If you ever want to visit, no pressure, just an option." Her face crumpled with relief and gratitude. "I'd like that very much." "I can't promise I'll be easy," I warned. "I have a lot of damage, a lot of trust issues." "You have every right to," she said. "I'll earn your trust slowly if you'll let me try." "Okay," I said. "Let's try." She pulled me into a hug, and I let myself be held by someone who'd actually cared, who'd actually tried, even if imperfectly. Maybe I'd found something I didn't know I'd been looking for, a piece of family worth keeping. 5 years after my rebirth, I released my fourth album, Full Circle. It was a different kind of album, less about pain and more about growth, less about trauma and more about triumph. Songs about chosen family, about building a life on your own terms, about the peace that comes from cutting toxic people out of your life permanently. The lead single, Better Off, had lyrics that made my stance crystal clear. "They say blood is thicker than water, but poison runs through family veins. I'm better off, so much better off, dancing in the freedom from their chains." It was my most successful album yet, debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200 and staying there for 8 weeks. I'd won 3 Grammys by then. I'd headlined Coachella. I'd collaborated with artists I'd idolized in my first life. I owned property in LA, New York, and Nashville. I had financial security that would last multiple lifetimes. More importantly, I had peace. Real, deep, lasting peace. My grandmother, I called her Nan now, visited monthly. We'd built a real relationship, one based on honesty and mutual respect. She told me stories about my father as a child, helped me understand how someone could be both a victim of poor parenting themselves and an abuser of their own children. It didn't excuse his behavior, but it contextualized it. Mrs. Patterson retired from teaching and joined my management team as an artistic advisor. She helped me stay grounded, reminded me why I'd started making music in the first place. Marcus became more than a manager, he was family, someone who'd believed in me when I had nothing and stuck with me through everything. I'd built a life worth living, a life filled with people who valued me, supported me, and celebrated my success instead of resenting it. I was 23 years old, the age I'd died in my first life, when my mother showed up at a meet and greet after a concert in our hometown. I was signing autographs and taking photos with fans when I saw her in line. She looked older, worn down, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. My security team moved to intercept her, but I held up a hand. Let her through. She approached the table like she was walking to her own execution. "Emma," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." The fans around us were watching avidly, phones out, ready to record whatever happened next. "You have 3 minutes," I said, "starting now." "I'm sorry," she said immediately. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I was jealous of you, threatened by your talent. I favored Vanessa because she needed me more, because loving her was easier. I destroyed you systematically because I couldn't handle you being better than me at something." The crowd was dead silent. "I've been in therapy for 2 years," she continued, "working on myself, understanding why I did what I did. It doesn't excuse it. Nothing excuses it. But I want you to know I understand now how badly I failed you, how much damage I caused, how much you deserved better." "Is there a question coming?" I asked coldly. "Can you ever forgive me?" she whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her, saw the genuine remorse, the years of regret etched into her face, saw someone who'd finally understood what she'd destroyed, but understood it far too late. In my first life, I'd have been desperate for this moment. I'd have forgiven her immediately, grateful for any crumb of maternal affection. But I wasn't that person anymore. "No," I said simply. "I can't forgive you. You don't get forgiveness just because you finally feel bad about what you did. You destroyed my childhood, killed my first chance at life, and only care now because you have to face the consequences of your actions publicly. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry everyone knows you hurt me." "That's not true," she protested. "Your 3 minutes are up," I said. "Please leave." "Emma, security," I called, and my team immediately moved forward. "Please escort this woman from the venue and add her to the permanent no-entry list for all my events." Mom's face crumpled as security took her arms gently but firmly. "Please," she sobbed. "You're my daughter." "I was your daughter," I corrected. I'm not anymore." "You made sure of that." They led her away, her sobs echoing through the venue. The fans erupted into applause. I finished the meet and greet with shaking hands, signed every autograph, took every photo, professional to the last, but afterward, alone in my dressing room, I cried. Not for her, not for the relationship we'd never have. I cried for the girl I'd been in both lives. The girl who just wanted her mother to love her, to be proud of her, to choose her just once. And then I let it go, because that girl didn't exist anymore. I'd killed her myself when I'd been reborn, had systematically dismantled everything she'd believed about family and love and self-worth. In her place was someone stronger, someone who didn't need her mother's approval, someone who'd learned that chosen family was better than blood family, that success was the best revenge, and that sometimes the only way to win was to walk away entirely. I'd won, completely and totally. I had everything they'd told me I couldn't have, everything they'd tried to prevent me from achieving, and they had nothing but regret. 10 years after my rebirth, 10 years after that concert that changed everything, I was headlining the Super Bowl halftime show. 100 million people watching worldwide. The biggest stage in entertainment. The pinnacle of popular music success. I performed a medley of my greatest hits, ending with a brand new song I'd written specifically for this moment. Rebirth. The lyrics told my story, both stories, in metaphorical terms that anyone who'd overcome adversity could relate to. I died in the darkness, was buried in shame, but I clawed through the coffin, remembered my name. This is my rebirth. Watch me rise from the pain. As I sang the final chorus, fireworks exploded overhead, spelling out Rebirth in brilliant colors across the night sky. The crowd, 70,000 people in the stadium, 100 million watching at home, went absolutely wild. I stood at the center of the stage, arms raised, drinking in the moment. This was everything I'd dreamed of across 2 lifetimes, everything I'd fought for, bled for, survived for, and somewhere I knew my parents were watching their daughter perform at the Super Bowl, achieve what they'd told her was impossible, live the life they'd tried to prevent. I hoped it hurt. I hoped they felt every second of what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away, what they could have been part of if they'd just loved me the way I deserved. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all anymore, because I'd built a life so full, so successful, so meaningful that they'd become irrelevant. They were footnotes in my story, cautionary tales about the cost of failing to love your children properly. The real story was about me, about resilience, talent, determination, and the power of refusing to let toxic people define your worth. I'd been given a second chance at life, and I'd used it perfectly. I'd won, and as I took my final bow on the biggest stage in the world, I knew with absolute certainty that my victory was complete, my revenge was total, and my peace was permanent. They'd told me I'd never make it. They'd told me my dreams were foolish. They'd told me I wasn't good enough. They were wrong about everything, and the whole world knew it. Backstage after the halftime show, covered in sweat and glitter and triumph, I found Nan waiting with Marcus and Ms. Patterson. "You did it," Nan said, pulling me into a hug. "Everything you've worked for. Everything you deserved. I'm so proud of you." "We all are," Ms. Patterson added, wiping tears from her eyes. "You've become more than even I imagined, and I always knew you were special." Marcus just grinned and handed me my phone. "You're trending #1 worldwide. The performance is being called the best halftime show in Super Bowl history. Your new single just hit #1 on iTunes. You did it, kid." I looked at the phone, at the flood of notifications, at the overwhelming proof of my success. And then I turned it off. Because I didn't need external validation anymore. I'd spent 2 lifetimes learning that the only approval that mattered was my own. I'd approved of myself, I'd saved myself, I'd built myself into someone extraordinary despite everything that had been done to me. That was enough. That would always be enough. "Let's go home," I said to my chosen family. "I want to celebrate with the people who actually love me." And we did. We went back to my penthouse in Manhattan, ordered too much takeout, and spent the night laughing and reminiscing and planning the future. No mention of my parents, no thought for my sister, no space in my beautiful life for people who'd never deserved to be there. I'd been reborn for a reason, and I'd fulfilled that purpose perfectly. The girl who died at 23, alone and broken in a psychiatric ward, was finally at peace. Because I'd lived the life she'd never gotten to live. I'd achieved the dreams she'd been told were impossible. I'd found the love and support she'd desperately needed. I'd avenged her. I'd honored her. I'd transformed her suffering into art and her pain into power. And now, finally, I could let her rest, because I wasn't that girl anymore. I was Emma Richardson, Grammy-winning artist, Super Bowl performer, self-made millionaire, survivor, and victor. I was everything they said I couldn't be. And I'd done it all without them. That was the greatest revenge of all.